And I think that like too many people have this like all in or nothing mentality. And I've fallen victim to that too many times in my life. And I'm more of like an all in kind of mentality right now. But throughout my journey, I wasn't. I would slip, or I would miss, going to the gym, or I would lapse in my life where I didn't make exactly the healthiest choice for myself. But I think that one of the things that really shows what kind of warrior heart and spirit that people have, and like what's going to determine people's long-term success, isn't being consistent 100% every day, even though that's what we all aspire to do. It's the ability to pick yourself up when we do fall and stand up and brush yourself off and keep going.
When I watched your video of you starting Myself Wellness, like that first video, I was like, I could see the energy in your face. Like, nobody knows what this is yet, but I fucking did. Like, I know. It was a very cool moment.
Dude, I wanted to find a video that I couldn't find for you guys too, man. Before we even got started, I was at the gym meeting our first medical director, and I had to get there at like 4:45 in the morning every morning because he worked out at 5 a.m. and I was trying to solidify the deal. And I'm like outside the gym videoing myself. And like I used to post all these on my positivity page, and I'm like crying. Like, I know everybody's concerned about me because there's like, thousands of people following that page, because like I was getting like 3 hours of sleep a night. I was like losing my voice. I was going crazy because like I was a man on a mission. And I'm like, and you guys just don't understand. I know that this is going to save people's lives. So this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
That's scary as fuck too, because it's like when everybody else is like, what the fuck is this guy? Like, you know what I mean?
I'm like mid spiritual awakening. I'm like 3 hours of sleep every night, but like I knew that God was gonna, or the universe or whatever, was constructing this to make it happen.
When you start a business and you really do go all in that way, it's hard. And people say that, right? Like people say it's hard, but then there are the days, they have no fucking idea, because then you have the days where you're like, my favorite thing is when you fuck up, when you yourself fuck up, and like you have to then you fuck up something, and then you're like, oh wow, I just messed that up pretty bad. Oh wait, nobody's here to reprimand me. I just have to sit in the fact that I messed that up, and then I cost myself money, whatever it is, and you just go through all these moments of like, can I? And then you just have to be like, yes, of course I can. You know what I mean? It's a tricky game building a business. I'd say that. When did the stress go away?
When did the stress go away?
I guess that's not a fair
I'm
question.
still stressed.
Yeah.
Are we on right now?
Yeah,
we're on.
You're still stressed?
No, man.
Did you ever? Was there ever a moment of like? Because I always think there's a survivor mindset of like, I just have to survive right now.
Yeah.
And then that can transfer into, I'm comfortable with where we are, but I want to go so much further. You know what I mean? Like you there's the moment of, we're good. Like I like to say the dream can stay alive. Like the dream is alive and well. And then there's the, okay, but now we got to go to the moon.
Listen, man, like I know it sounds completely crazy, but like when I was having those profound experiences, I believe that it was God giving me messages, right? So the thing is that I took it seriously, like divine guidance from God. And so I knew it was going to work. The hardest and most stressful part of my life was convincing everybody else that. Because like I knew there was no plan B. There was no question in my mind that I had gone through everything that I went through in my life to get to that point so I could be of service and help other people. And like, it wasn't about believing. It was, I knew 100%. There was no veering me from that.
What did you do when the doubt crept in?
I would always like go back to the synchronicity of everything. See, it's like if you go back and you watch everything unfold, a lot of the stuff that happened with our company was by the skin of our teeth. Like it was like that close where something almost didn't work out and then it ended up working out, right? And so it's like when you go back and you reference that to people, you'd be like, look, like it had to it has to work because this is led up to this sign led up to this, like just the way that like we met Dr. Ferber and our first medical director, where it's like, I sat down with Christina and I'm at her mother's house with her on Thanksgiving. And I looked at Christina and I'm like, hey, wouldn't it be great if I bumped into Dave Wilkinson and he said he'd be our medical director. And then the next day I'm walking in the gym and Dave Wilkinson's walking up. You know what I'm saying? And then I kind of look up at the sky. I'm like, okay, I got this. And so I went over, asked him if we needed him to be, or if we needed a medical director for some of the equipment that Christina was going to be using for aesthetics. And he's like, I don't know, but you want to work out today. And then 30 minutes into our workout, he looks at me and he's like, hey, Charles, why don't you ask me to be your medical director? And I'm like, yeah, Dave, that'd be amazing. And then like, we'd been talking about getting into ketamine because psychedelics saved my life and I was trying to figure out how to do it. And then Dave comes for a tour of the facility like a week later. And at the end of the tour, we're in the lobby and he looks at me and he's like, hey, Charles, have you ever heard of ketamine before? And I'm like, yeah, Dave, I have heard of ketamine because it saved psychedelic medicine saved my life. It was like synchronistically, it was just the unfolding of everything, right? And like, listen, man, in the absoluteness or the oneness of everything, that we're all one collective consciousness and separation is an illusion, I have to go back to there are no coincidences. Everything's connected. And if we're all extensions of the divine and we can manifest our own reality, the only limitations that I was going to have were the ones that I was going to place upon myself. So I look at myself as a limitless being that can accomplish anything. And I'm crazy enough to know that I can heal the world, man.
Speaking of healing the world, we have a special guest in today. What was your experience like? Like, what, obviously, how did you meet Charles? But then what kind of opened your mind up to psychedelic therapy as a way to heal past trauma, past wounds? Like, what was your journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess I'll just introduce myself. Is that cool?
Yeah.
So if
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
don't know,
Yeah.
I'm Zain Bajwa. I currently do social media, YouTube stuff, just online presence. But what originally opened me up to like psychedelics was that I remember like just having, this was before I became religious. Now I consider myself a Christian as of like the last year or so. But before, I just believed everything happened for a reason. Like, just be good to one another, like the golden rule, treat people how you want to be treated. I remember my first time taking LSD. Like, my friends, they're like, two of my best friends, they decided to take it with me. And, this was the first time taking LSD, and we all had very different trips. Like, we're all almost in our own worlds in it. But then, like, near the end of the trip, it all, like, connected. And then I was like, there's no way we're all having the same trip right now. Like, it almost got, like, synchronized, like you said. We all ended up on the same level at the end of it. And, like, it was kind of like, that just showed me, like, there's some weird, strange connection that this, like, psychedelic made. I mean, because we were all three in their own different worlds. But, like, we all found, like, a common ground. So I was like, whatever the common ground could be between us, that like shows that there's like a connection between everything almost. So I'm like, how are we having the same experience right now? Like, almost like went on the same wavelength, I would say.
Like a divine intervention. Like you felt the divine part of the experience.
Yeah, and then I mean, I did psychedelics like from that point on a little bit, like recreationally, always like for the searching reason. Like, I wanted to go into a trip to like, search, like find something out about myself or like learn something. And I always did, and I always like had really good trips, all that. Then like kind of got out of psychedelics. I became more into like the alcohol and like, coke in college, other like party drugs. And those are really fun and like stimulating at the time, but then I like felt like left me in like a grog, like kind of a lower state after. So then I've like just broke sober a few times in my life, just like gone sober streaks, but something always dragged me back to that point. So then that was like, that's happening while my YouTube career is progressing. People are seeing me on the internet, and like at first when I started filming, my friends were just like, get super drunk on camera. People think you're hilarious. So like that was the goal, is just get me as drunk as I could be, put me in public, and just have like the reactions of people to me, because I already made a scene, and now that I'm drunk, I'm more rambunctious making a scene. People loved it, but then like I started seeing the comments like, this guy has a problem. Like this guy's, I had like, you know, like addiction people like reaching out to me like,
Yeah.
it's not sustainable what you're doing.
Mhm.
And like, you know, in the bubble, you don't really like, I feel like I'm doing people solids because I'm going out, you know, they like my
entertaining.
energy, I'm entertaining them.
Mhm.
But then like, you know, I leave just feeling like, you know, like I lost a part of myself, because I'm just like, I'm drinking as much as 10 people are drinking, and I'm not even realizing it, but I'm just going, you know, it's the adrenaline pushing me on. And
Mhm.
then like nobody should be shotgunning 20 beers in an hour or whatever it is, you know, like body has limits. But I felt myself like passing those limits a little bit. And then I'm like, I get the same results if I don't go to that level, you know, like it's an all mental thing. Like, so I focus on like increasing my physical aura instead of like like leaning on the alcohol and stuff. And that's when I started getting like a deeper connection to, you know, my actual like fan base, you would call it, or like people that see me on the internet. And I was,
Let me ask you about this, not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I think that's such an interesting perspective coming from somebody that lives in that world of, because like I think we all know what you're talking about. It's the Nelk Boys lifestyle. It's that I mean, Nelk Boys kind of brought it into social media, but it's a lifestyle. Like you have to go and you have to be entertaining. I think of streamers all the time where I'm like, man, to have to show up in that way so consistently to be able to entertain, it's for your audience, it is both fulfilling, but also they'll take pieces of you just piece by piece, and then before you know it, you've given everything to social media. When did that start becoming like something where you're like, holy shit, like where is the line?
well, like I really started seeing that, I started realizing that, you know, people like really liked the character and my personality, but I felt like a big part of it was like linked to, you know, like weed smoking and alcohol, which is like, I mean, I do that recreationally. I think it's fun, whatever.
Mhm.
Don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But I didn't want like me to be linked to that as much. And you know, that I realized like things I was posting, you know, or like even little things that went in videos that I thought like people wouldn't hold on to. People hold on to all the little details. So I was like, you know, if these people are really focused on me, I'd rather give them like, you know, something good to hold on to, you know, like I don't want to like lead people into like thinking alcohol is the only reason that makes me funny. If anything, it makes me less funny, you know, like I think I've learned that I'm more funny without it.
Mhm.
Did my first stand-up show without any alcohol, had my best results, you know, like if anything, it prohibits you to work at your full level and kind of numbs you. But then I kind of got over that feeling of wanting to be numb, and it is like a little more anxious because you're real time like feeling it, you know.
Mhm.
But you get like better results, and I started seeing like, you know, better interactions with people. I have people that, you know, some people would consider fans, but like I consider them friends, you know, like build relationships with people. Started going out with like, you know, people to the gym, you know, doing other stuff like that. And that like really, I think the gym really built my mindset to like help push people. Like that was more of just like, instead of just making people laugh, I wanted to like motivate people and kind of be like this guy, like you could do all this, but because I was like such a lost person like throughout all college and stuff, like, and then it's like people find me funny now, but like that comes from, you know, obviously a place of like I had to make myself funny, you know, like that was what I had. And then once I started honing into that power, I started leaning a little less off of, you know, the alcohol and stuff, and I just started getting like way better results with people. And you know, I got kind of tired of people being like, oh, we're the same way, like I'm crazy, I drink a lot, I smoke a lot. It's like that's not what I want to be known for with people. I would want to be known for like,
And that's not who you are.
yeah, like I want to be more known for like, like the comedy, the comedic relief, or like, having a big heart, like, so like, Charles has reached out to me over the internet while I was still working at AT&T, and he probably saw something in me that I didn't see at that point. I was at AT&T. I would have never known that this last year would have ever happened. But, I was always like super service oriented. Like I always wanted to make sure customers were super happy. Like even at those jobs, like serving and stuff, it wasn't really about the money. It was more about the customer satisfaction. So I think I take that into like the social media world where it's like, I'm just really, as long as my like fan base, my core is doing really good, I'm doing well, so.
It's interesting that you just said that about making people laugh, because I wrote this yesterday when I was talking about like social media in general, and it said at first people were impressed with complexity, but now they care about assumed intention. So the creator's assumed intention, if it's to entertain or whatever that is. In some areas, people like to directly anger their audience because it is assumed to be the easiest emotion to draw out of somebody. So you think about like the alcohol, the weed, it's like that's the easiest emotion to draw out of somebody. But the reality is you can make people feel without making them feel anger. Make them curious, motivated, make them happy, surprise them, and then if you're lucky, make them laugh.
Yeah.
Because making somebody laugh is easily the hardest skill to be able, or the hardest emotion to draw out of somebody, because it's such a unique emotion. And you having that capacity in and of itself makes you a one out of, multi-millions of people that just can't evoke that emotion. So
yeah.
thank you. First of all, thank you for being so transparent about your story. I think that's, I think we're living in a world where that is so popular. The college lifestyle, the party lifestyle, like I participated in that. Like I think everybody at this table has participated in that lifestyle.
And I think there is value to it. I mean, I would never give that like part of my life away for anything, like, and it definitely has taught me a lot. And being in those moments and actually like, being next to the people and, like drinking with them, smoking with them, like I've gotten a huge understanding of, human interactions and, and like you said, like the easiest thing to do is anger someone, that's why a lot of these streamers, they go out in public and they'll, body shame people or say like a racist remark to someone to get a reaction because they know it's going to go viral. Easiest reaction to catch on camera is someone being angry, it's kind of harder to tell like other reactions, but, that's why I think I take a lot from like the older people like Danny Duncan, Vitaly, even though like Vitaly, I'm not the biggest fan of, he has a similar story as me too, he's had drugs, alcohol, and then had a huge problem with psychedelics, and then now is, I think, like psychedelics now again. But I don't know, and like those people, they tried their best to make people laugh, and like it is a different like type of reaction you're looking for someone, and I feel like sometimes if you're not completely sober, you don't always get the reaction you're really looking for. And a lot of like my jokes are a lot like, playing with the line. So like if you don't deliver it right, someone might get angry, but
It's an art. It's
Yeah.
it's an art to be able to communicate in a way that, like, you're talking about a skill. Like most people don't know how to be funny or how to evoke emotions out of people. They're just saying how they feel, and they don't have a second thought. They just kind of speak, and then they can't really understand how somebody is going with them in that in their communication. And for you to have that, it makes sense why when you're smoking, drinking, you can't play that game as easily in terms of understanding what you're doing to the other person, because that empathy kind of goes away a little bit.
Yeah, and I think psychedelics helped me a lot too, because it kind of, it gave like a humorous light on a lot of bad situations in my life. Like, like a lot of psychedelic trips I've had, it's like uncontrollably laughing, Like sometimes I'll be laughing about the worst things, like, oh yeah, like totaled my car yesterday laughing about it, you know, because you find like something funny about it that's like, I don't know, it's hard to explain that part, but
What do you think that is, Charles? What do you think it's like a rekindling with your childhood? It's almost like rekindling with your childhood mindset around just life in general.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think that like one thing that psychedelics did for me is like it made me stop taking things as seriously as I once did. Kind of like not being stuck on the negative aspects of everything, but just realizing that it was something I had to go through in order to get to where I was going. So I think that psychedelics can bring you back to that, like, look at the big picture aspect and make you go back to the bird's eye view of everything rather than being so laser focused on the negative aspect of something and getting stuck in that thought loop. It can break you free from the thought loops.
Interesting.
yeah.
Did you find that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think that what you're saying about like breaking free of the thought loop is like psychedelics, especially like with humor and just like reflecting on my life, you know, like it really brings out like less serious. Like one of my biggest mentors in my life, like I like, you know, maybe have a discussion with someone and it didn't go right, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I got angry. I told him like, because then the ego gets into play, you know. So I think um that's a big word that I haven't brought up yet, but like when it comes to like psychedelics, it kind of curbs your ego a lot. Like it's kind of hard, like you to be humorous. Sometimes you have to curb your ego. A lot of my jokes start with myself, you know. They have stuff that like were actual insecurities about myself that I'm not insecure about now because like I let it go. It's like it's funny to me now, you know. It's like it's actually a strength to me now, you know. Like I used to hate being like skinny and all this stuff, but like it's really helped me in my career, like just my physical looks and everything, and it's actually like been a strength to me, you know. Like when they see me on the internet, a lot of people say like I look very familiar. Like people see me on the street, they see me from the internet, they kind of like can pick me out from other people, and
That's something I've been reading The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, and it
I
talks
love
about
Robert Greene.
it's such a good book, like probably one of the best books that I've ever read on just human nature in general, but it talks about this idea of the shadow. So when we're kids, we have these raw emotions or we have these things about ourselves that over time we try to fit in, and so we have to suppress that side of ourselves. So we have to constantly like take something that we're insecure about, suppress it because we need to fit in. Or if we're leaning in on, hey, I feel this way, I have to go and do everything I can to not be like, I'm bald and I'm going bald. And I would like to run from that. I would like to run from that idea of like, I don't want to be bald. But I think the idea of the shadow and where the shadow becomes powerful is when you're able to acknowledge that part of yourself and be okay with that part of yourself and then be comfortable with that part of yourself. And that's what exactly what you're saying draws people into who you are, because you're not living in a world where you're ignoring parts of yourself that are clear as day to everybody else besides you.
I think that that's one thing that really like is important that psychedelics do for people is it makes you be comfortable being your true authentic self and realizing that the proverbial box that society or other people are always trying to fit people into doesn't exist. It's just a bunch of bull crap, and that like it's okay to be you because you are perfect and you always have been. I mean, like, even when we looked at our life like, hey, I wasn't living in the most positive light at that time, it's the synchronicity of everything and realizing that I was perfect back then too, because I was perfectly going through the motions of what I needed to go through in order to evolve into the individual that I am today. So it's like we have to go through the dark in order to get out to the light. I remember I got a guy who I'm friends with now, and he's a cop, and he arrested me like 15 years ago. Okay. And, after we started the company, about 2 years into it, I saw him at the gym. And this is when I was starting to get like news presence and stuff like that. And people were starting to talk a little bit. And he's like, Charles, he's like, man, look at you. look at what you've accomplished in such a short period of time in your life. Doesn't it suck that you wasted so many years of your life the way that you did? And I looked at him and I'm like, Frank, I'm like, listen, man. I go, if I wouldn't have went through everything that I went through, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. And like now I know I went through all of that to find my purpose. See, I actually look at my darkest days as some of my biggest blessings because it showed me my purpose to live a life of service and be there to help pull other people out of the flames that I was once in. So always falling back into, even though things might not seem like they're perfect at this time, once you move forward a little bit farther and you look back, you'll have this aha moment and you'll be like, oh, that's why I went through that. Oh, that's why I felt that level of insecurity. Oh, that's why, I was drinking too much or using drugs too much recreationally or, getting attention of a lot of people that thought it was so cool that I was doing that. See, listen, man, I used to have that same kind of like that facade with people where, or not even facade, but like people would view me as the guy who went out and partied too much and got wasted. And I'd always be like the life of the party and having so much fun. But then by the end of the night, I'm doing things that people were running away from because it wasn't the life of the party anymore. It was a huge issue. But see, here's the thing though, man. Those same people that saw me kind of like being a part of that crazy circus that I used to be a part of, now they see where I'm at now. And a lot of those people are still going through like substance abuse issues or alcohol problems and stuff like that. And they'll be like, oh man, I remember when Charles was a nutcase.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember when he was completely out of control. And now look where he's at now. Well, if he can do it, then I can do it too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's kind of the same effect that I've had on people. It's like, if he could do it, I could do it. And that's why I always vouch to people. It's like, because, I have been, in like deep into alcohol, deep into, and even this YouTube and stuff. It's like the last year, like I spent my entire college, like throwing the biggest parties at Iowa State. And, people knew me as like a drug dealer and, all this stuff at a past life. And then, they see me on YouTube now and like, I get like all those like Snapchats and stuff like, hey, we're proud of you, like from a year ago. And it's kind of like a you versus you, like, yeah, back then, like I thought that like I was living a facade life, like I'm not that person. I'm not like some fucking El Chapo guy, like, and I made it like I literally had to make myself look that way to all these people to actually live the way I was living. But then I realized it was like a fake life. It wasn't like something that I really wanted. I'm actually like, I love helping people. I thought like I was like, I'm better than all the other drug dealers. Like I give people free drugs. Like if they can't afford it, I hook them up. Like I'm not like I was only selling weed. It's not like hurt, but it's like that's not what God wanted me to do, and He made that very clear. And then,
well, but see, here's the thing though, man. Actually, I believe that it was exactly what you were supposed to be doing. Let's go.
I mean, like for the long term.
Oh, no, yeah, no, 100%. But like you had to go through all of that, so now you can be that guiding light for other people.
Oh yeah.
Listen, man, like I want to like say the way that I connected with Zan, it was the synchronicity of the universe again, right? So like I'm sitting at my house one night and there's a Instagram notification that pops up that says one of my buddies, Avi, commented on somebody's live video, right?
Avi Gold, yeah, he's the man.
Yeah. So I pop it up because like I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check that out. And all of a sudden, like Zan's working at AT&T and he's on there with a couple other guys and they're talking, and like I knew I was supposed to connect. I knew I was supposed to follow him instantly, and it was like I had no idea who he was, man. But I have a way like where like I read people, man. Like I can feel energy, even if it's over a computer screen or through a phone or something. And I knew that he had this like really genuine goodness about him. Like he had a big heart, and I could just feel it the way that he was talking over this live feed, from the AT&T shop. And then so I'm following him, and I wrote him, and I'm like, hey man, listen, he was starting to move forward and doing what he's doing now with like the YouTubing and all this kind of stuff. And I'm writing him and I'm like, hey man, you're crushing it, you're manifesting your dreams, keep going on. If there's anything I can ever do to support you or whatever, let me know. And he was kind of like sending me a message back every once in a while and being like, hey man, like, yeah, for sure, keep crushing it, da 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 da. And it's like I've watched him evolve into this person where it's like now he has this audience of people that are recognizing who he is, and he's doing a lot of work with all of these other amazing people. And see, like when I was watching though, I remembered that guy that had this big warm heart and like this person that could reach tons of people. And then I did start noticing when I was watching his videos, not that I was judging, because there is no judgment on my end, but like I was watching him start to talk about, hey, I'm starting to try to get away from drinking right now. You know what I'm saying? Like it's something like, he was talking about how many days consecutively he hadn't drank and he was trying to go that avenue. And I was just like, man, listen, like this guy's got all of the potential in the world and he has the ability to reach such a huge audience of people. And for somebody that can like make it through, partying too much and not utilizing these compounds, effectively, and ended up being an issue of some sorts, I was like, listen, man, like I wrote him and I'm like, next time you're in Naples, come by my clinic. I want to show you around and I want to talk to you. I want to give you a tour. And he was like, yeah, man, sure. And that kind of like just kind of bounced back and forth for like a couple months or whatever and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, I'll hit you up. I'll hit you up. And then recently, this last time that he came back, he was like, hey, man, he's like, let's, like I wrote him and I'm like, hey, man, you want to come by? And he's like, yeah, well, we'll get together while I'm here. And then he came by the clinic the other day with a couple of his friends and stuff. And we sat down and I kind of like explained to everybody, because see, like what we do has such a bad stigma and taboo associated with it. I mean, a lot of people don't even realize that ketamine is a psychedelic at the end of the day, right?
Well, it definitely is. I know that now.
100%. But then you start getting into the conversations about all the neurological healing and the increased natural dopamine levels for somebody that's trying to like not consume as much alcohol. If we increase the natural dopamine levels, you start feeling so good that you don't want to rely on outside sources to get your dopamine bursts and stuff like that. And then when we sat down the other day, he was like, hey man, like, this sounds like something that I might be like open to doing. I think it might be good for me. And that's when we kind of like sat down and came to the conclusion of like, hey man, this probably would be a good idea for you. Yeah. So like, so let's get into like, so what did you think, man? For like people that are watching or listening and stuff, I know, you came in with your understanding of ketamine being a certain way and maybe not having these profound kind of psychedelic effects to it. What was your first experience like, man?
It was more intense than I thought it would be, but in a good way. It was kind of like you said. It was like I was unfolding. I felt like I was unraveling a lot. I started in a place where like a lot of it's like hard to explain, but I started in a place where I didn't really know what was happening. I felt like it was unknown, but then like it started kind of unfolding, like shedding, and
explain. So does that mean like you sit down, they start the treatment.
Yeah. And then,
hey, can we do this though, man? Is there a way we can actually like, so like when do you want to just start of like, what was your thoughts about coming to the clinic and what was the vibe like, and like kind of like how was everybody and stuff like that, and then leading into the actual experience?
So I mean, what brought me in was like, like Charles was saying, I was like kind of on this big, like I'm not drinking, and I was fighting on and off. Like Thanksgiving, I went like a month or two. Then I started drinking again, went wet again, and then New Year's I went like another month, and then I went wet again when I came back. But like all between that, like I was in the gym a lot. Like I've had amazing gym progress. Like Bradley Martin, Zoo Culture, and Raw Gear. They like signed me as like a Raw Gear affiliate. So like
that's sweet.
it's cool. So like that gave me a lot of motivation. Just like that was like life changing. I mean, just getting in the gym, like, because that helped me kind of like get over like the depression of like alcohol. Because I was like, oh, I'm tearing my body up, but now like my body feels good. So I'm like, all right, my body feels super good. Like, how do I get my mind, a little bit better? And then I get back in Naples, visit my family, which is great for my mental, my pastor. And then like the ketamine treatment, I was always kind of interested in. Didn't know much about it, but then like Charles like kind of brought me in, did the intake, and then everybody at the clinic's super nice. The clinic is a beautiful spot. It was a lot. I was expecting more of like a hospital feel, and I hate being in the hospital, so I was like, I was expecting to go in there and like kind of look for everything wrong. It wasn't like I was going in there like, hey, I just want to get high off ketamine. Like, I really wanted something to elevate me to the next level. I was looking for the best thing without like doing something that I thought would be bad for me. So then I go in there, kind of get the full rundown of ketamine, and it's cool. I still have like a lot of concerns. I'm like, like, is this really like meditative, or is this just like people getting high in a chair? But then I meet the
Dr. Ferber.
Dr. Ferber.
Dr. Ferber's the man.
Legend.
Dr. Ferber is the man.
Legend. And then he like just kind of unlocked this thing in me. Like, he really showed me that it is a lifelong journey. Like, he's been meditating over 50 years. He was telling me about, I meditate like 20 minutes a day. Been doing that for the last few years. He said he's meditating constantly in a meditative state. And I could really feel it with him, like peaceful. I remember we were like having a normal conversation, and then he just stops and starts just staring at me, like into my soul. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, I stayed silent for like a minute, and then I'm like, am I supposed to say something? And then he just starts smiling, and he's like, oh, you're better than most people. Like he could really read a lot about someone. And
after Zan left after he did the intake with Dr. Ferber for the approval, Ferber pulls me aside and he goes, he's ready. He goes, he's ready. He's a meditator, and he's getting ready to embark on this spiritual journey.
That's
yeah. Oh, I felt ready after that, and then I still had a little more concerns. So I ended up doing the intake, and they're asking me all these questions about it. And the intake lady was super nice, that she's done it about 14 times or 10 times herself. I think it was 14. And I was like, wow, if you could do that many times, like it must be good. And everybody there just seemed very level-headed. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. So then it comes the day that I have to do it.
Do you have anxiety going into that? Like, did you feel super anxious?
Yeah. I took an Uber from Naples to Bonita, and it was like an hour Uber drive with traffic. So the entire Uber drive, I'm just thinking, remember the intake, they were telling me like, think about your intentions about going in. So I'm like, all right, what do I want? I'm like, I want to get better. I want to get stronger. I want to, find out more about myself, my purpose. I was like, I really want to talk to God, and I want to see my friend who just passed away in 3 weeks, not even 3 weeks ago. So those are my intentions, and I'm like nervous. Then I get there, super cool, comfy chair, get the first dose put in. Instantly, like maybe after a minute, start feeling super relaxed. Like feel like I'm almost about to like fall asleep. And then 15 minutes past, the second dose comes in. By the second time the second dose comes in, I was like perfectly kind of fading into the like point where I'm gonna start hallucinating almost, And then a lot of unexplainable stuff started happening. Like I said, it's like unfolding. I kind of felt like I was in a dark room by myself, but slowly light was coming in. Different scenes were changing. Just like kind of going through a lot. Like, I think it was more just like feeling the raw emotions, but it was definitely questions and answers being like in it. But it was my first time, so I don't think I fully understood everything that was going on. But then, it was like, I remember like panicking a little bit, like trying to get out of it. Like, I didn't want to be like sitting. I really wanted to like use my legs and get up. And then, I was fighting it a little bit. But Charles told me, it's like, every time you fight it, just revert to that deep breath. And every time I would revert to that deep breath, it'd be like a scene switch. And then it'd be like something really good. Like I'm learning something until I start fighting it. And then I would have to calm myself down again. And then like as it's fading away a little bit more, I remember it got really intense. And I was just like saying like, I love everything. I love God. I remember asking him, I'm like, am I dead? Like, I was like, I can't. And he's like, no, you're perfect. And then it was like just fading in from like, like extreme like visuals and strong emotions. And then I'd be back in a calm place in the room. And then the really cool part was like right at the end, I like thought it was like I was fading back to normal. I was kind of like done with it. I was like, I'm ready to go back to like my normal self and think how I normally do. And I remember I was like, wait, like I remember I wanted to see my friend Cole, and he had like long blonde hair. And like right as I said that, like she was in front of me the entire time, like probably for the last few minutes, but it was like you're the blonde girl. Yeah. Jessica. It was like it was like Cole's face, and then it like I turned into reality and it was her. So like I got to see a glimpse of my friend right at the end of it, and that's where I was like, that was a really strong moment. And I know I had a lot of really strong moments, but like I couldn't wrap my head over all of it. Like it is a lot. Like
During the first experience, because you don't know exactly what you're getting yourself into, it's harder to completely let yourself go because it's something so different and new. The thing is like you can have experience with other psychedelic compounds, but this is a very different experience. It's literally one of the most profound psychedelic experiences that you can have, where like, Zan was saying, it's like when you close your eyes, the scenery changes. One of the constant common things that people will actually do during their first treatment a lot of the time is once the actual medicine starts kicking in, we monitor everything over cameras. We'll watch in and people will go with their eye mask. They'll go like
I
that.
did that a few times. Yeah, for sure.
and put it back down and then go. And it's because like you want to make sure you're still in the building.
Yeah.
Because you're like in a completely different
Yeah.
place.
You don't even realize you're doing it. Like,
Well, that's where the fighting comes in. I can imagine.
Yeah, well, because it's like, am I still there? Did I go somewhere else? Where am I at?
am I dead? The am I dead thing is crazy.
So here's what happens. And actually, the symbol for our company of My Self Wellness is actually a symbol. It's an ancient symbol of rebirth. Okay. And I actually had some death experiences when I did my treatments. It's not, nobody's literally dying at our facility. It's this like, it's like a physical death kind of feeling where you start journeying off and going on this journey. And people think that momentarily they might have died.
yeah. Yeah, it was just like, it's just surreal. I'm like, how did like, I think it's just like that moment in my head. I was like, like all those experiences. I was like, those felt like an afterlife experience, but I'm having it. But I mean, I remember you guys were like super like cool, helpful. I had Charles on this side holding my hand, another person on this side holding my hand, and just like it was a lot. But at the end, I just remember feeling like so relieved.
Did you feel more connected to God afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, I still like it's my first treatment, so I don't know how like God exactly feels about it or anything. Like I don't know that. I'm not gonna speak on that yet because I don't know too much about it, but I did definitely feel very connected to God during all that. And
That's incredible.
The constant thing, and I hope, listen, if you want me to cut it, we can, but he kept saying like, love, love, love. I love God. I love. Like it was just this constant thing about love. And then all of a sudden during his experience too, he's like, everybody needs to experience this. Everybody needs to experience this. And it's because it's this overwhelmingly theme of love. And, and like, that's a very consistent thing that happens during these treatments, that you feel this overwhelmingly loving feeling for yourself and for other people and for your
like
higher.
the purest form of love almost. Like, I mean, I was, we were all holding hands and I felt like I was feeling love from you guys, but it was more than just like our love. Is like all the love in the world almost. Like I felt just connected, I felt good. And, even after that session, I went and started texting people on my phone, like, hey, I love you. Like, hey, like I hope everything's good. Like,
it's,
it brought me more to a aware point where, love, there is, I think, good and evil. I like in there, I remember being like, at the beginning, like I was like kind of in a dark place in the trip almost. Like it seemed like an evil place. Like but I think maybe PTSD or, something like that. But I was in there, but I felt like a weird sense of calmness because I'm like, like I rock with God is like, that's why I kept saying. So I was like, I'm not too scared about this. And like, slowly I got out of that trip and like calmed myself and like,
That's so like during like the first or second treatment sometimes, like we have to go back and visit these parts of ourselves, these inner aspects of ourselves. We're like, listen, like a lot of us have been living a life of duality, okay? Like dark and light. And like for me, what I aspire is to, and like not from a religious standpoint, but I try to live my life like Christ would have led, okay? In a state of non-duality, to be the light, to go through the darkness and then become the light and stay in that non-dual state. And so like when you're healing therapeutically through psychedelics and ketamine too, it brings you back to these darker aspects even of ourselves sometimes. I call them the outer layers of the onion that need to be peeled away. And sometimes those, because we're all onions at the end of the day, right? And we've got all of these different layers. And once we peel through enough layers of the onions, which is what I believe like a ketamine treatment does, is it peels the outer layers of the onion away until we get to the core of who we truly are. And the answer to that question is love.
yeah.
We all are. We just got to get back to it. So like if you have those kind of darker feeling experiences, it's because it's peeling those outer darker layers of the onion away so we can peel that off of us and heal through that aspect of ourselves to get back to that true essence of love.
So it's interesting. The Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill is a great book, and it starts off talking about the laws of success, and it breaks it down to the atoms, and then it breaks it down to like this metaphysical, like transferring. They talk about the mastermind when there's multiple minds together, all pursuing the same goal. There's like almost this connection through the through the this is going to sound crazy, not in this conversation, but it's like there's this vibration that comes off that everything is working together synchronistically, like we're talking about. And it breaks it down to the atom level. What you just kind of mentioned was this feeling of both, yes, the evil, because evil exists, but then more towards the core of, I think, existence, which is love and passion and things like that. But did you feel that energy field, I guess, a little bit of the transferring of energy of like love in the universe kind of?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's where like the journey kind of started. I think it was like how I kind of like I was still trying to wrap my head around it, but how I'm kind of wrapping my head around it was like it was almost like the journey to like finding pure love, like that entire ketamine trip, like I was kind of unlocking it. Like I said, I felt like I was like unfolding it. Like I was like, I felt love, and then I was like, yeah, love, like love's love. But even before I started that, like I started like humming and like I felt like this is a frequency, and then I'm like, what's that frequency? Like it's love, and then I'm like, oh, love's the answer, and like it's almost like I repeated that word like probably like 2,000 times in that hour, like. But that's really all it was. It was just like I think unlocking the pure form of that, and because I think love is like it's deeper. I mean, because some people just say they love stuff that they don't actually love. It's just surface level love, but there's a deeper emotion, and like love's a way stronger thing than I ever like thought it was before then.
Dr. Ferber says love is the healing force. Love is like, it's like, one of the veterans that we put through treatments that he's actually in our documentary. His name's Michael, and he's just like, the Beatles had it right. All you need is love. And it's like it's this constant thing with ketamine. It's weird because like it's a very love inducing molecule. It's almost like MDMA slightly, where it's a heart opening compound at the same time as a psychedelic or therapeutic compound, where we have people that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s come out of their treatments in tears because they're like, this is the first time I've ever loved myself in my entire life.
Holy shit.
You know, and like to watch somebody that's gone through 50 years of their life and never felt that loving feeling for themselves, and to have it from a ketamine treatment like that, it's like, listen, like that's why I'm convinced this stuff is going to change the world, is because, you know, even though none of the other compounds have gone through FDA approval yet and we don't have access to them, I believe that ketamine has the capabilities of not only healing PTSD, not only treating all of the symptoms of whatever people have gone through, you know, with depression, anxiety, and PTSD, but in order to like really transform humanity and transform our world, the world needs more love. And ketamine seems to unlock that natural loving energy within people, and then that's how you transmute that out to other people. You know, it's like, I believe that
they talk about that. You can't fill from a half filled cup. You can't even fill from a full cup. You can only fill other people through an overflowing cup, and that comes down to like your own ability to love who you are. So if we're using love as this example, it's like, you can't give somebody love if you only love yourself halfway.
Well, it's like when Zain talked about when he came out of his treatment and he's on his phone and he's texting people, "Hey, I love you, man. I love you, man."
You're overflowing with love.
And people that have kids and stuff like that do that to their kids. Like, it's like, so like we'll have people that will come out of treatments and then like, you know, their family came to pick them up and they're like, you know, like if it's a guy, he's like, "Are my wife and kids here?" And they're like, "Yeah, they're in the lobby. Will you please go get them for me?" And then all of a sudden you see the family go into the room and there's this massive like group hug going on where it's like, "I love you so much. I love you so much." And it makes you want to let people know just how much you do care for them and love them, which I think we're blocking a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the drive back yesterday was like the best drive ever too. I mean, it makes you like so much more grateful, I feel like, and like really in the moment, and just kind of was like, you know, just enjoy every moment, make the best of every moment. Like that's what the simplest thing we learned is that, you know, we get one life, make the most of it in all these moments and act with love. And yeah, I mean, I think it was a great experience for myself, for sure.
See, listen, man, it'll be fantastic to like watch you through the process of all of this, because, you know, like the one treatment is definitely an eye opener and you might feel these kind of emotions. Wait till you're halfway through, man. Well, usually when people are halfway through, they're just like, okay, wow, like I'm starting to feel really good. It's unlocking all of this stuff that we're talking about right now, but onto the next level. And by the time you have gone through the protocol, you will be a completely different version of the person that you are right now, in the most positive way possible. You'll have all of your good attributes, which we all know you have a ton of them, but it's going to level you up, man. And it's going to take you to that next level so you can shine your light so bright that it's going to, you know, it's going to ripple out into the universe and it's going to help so many people.
And
I appreciate that.
they say in entrepreneurship, or just, I guess, life in general, skill, you have skill, belief, and resources are the three things that contribute to like people being successful in entrepreneurship. I think this is the belief aspect of it. This is changing the belief, because what you're doing is my assumption of it is you're unlocking what you believe is possible. How do you think this is going to, obviously I actually am super stoked to see this later on in the process, but at least now, have you contemplated your career? Have you thought about things like that, the depth of your career now?
Yeah, I mean, my career is kind of in a weird state right now, just because I'm working on so many different things, different people, different, you know, especially in content creating, it's a lot about just setting up times and dates and, you know, making the right move and setting it up like cinematically or whatever. But yeah, with I think the ketamine treatment definitely, you know, it's helped me, you know, think more about even this first treatment. It's just like think more about the seriousness of it, because, you know, the first year, you know, I've had great success. You know, I've worked with some of the biggest YouTubers, some of biggest content creators out there. Got the fitness kind of in check, but it's never been something I've taken it seriously. I kind of, you know, I worked for a channel. They told me to show up, I'd show up and act. And now I'm kind of realizing like I could be more than that, because it's my friend's channel where like eventually I'm gonna have to start my own channel.
Mm.
And I'm kind of getting to the point in my career where I do see like us kind of going, not like just the content we're creating, kind of going into different paths. So that's what I'm kind of gearing towards now is like, all right, if I do have to do this content thing by myself, like what's going to be my thing, like what's going to be my gist. And I think this is actually helping me just find out a lot more about myself, like my purpose, my passion. And with that, if as soon as I find my passions and my purpose, that's when my content starts going really good. Like last time my content started doing really good was, when I got out of jail and I just found my pastor, became Christian. I was sober for a little bit. I started getting all these signs, seeing like butterflies, getting tipped $500 at this restaurant I worked at, just like all these small signs. It's because I was feeding into like the good natures of myself. Where like, sometimes when I get lost, it's not that I'm being a bad person necessarily, but I'm not living up to my full potential, which is just like, like in LA sometimes, I'll be in the clubs or there's different stuff to do and none of that stuff helps my career. I mean, maybe it does in some ways, I meet friends or whatever. Networking is huge. But I'm kind of like just focused on dialing in. I have good things going for me. Fitness, like, I've had incredible fitness growth in a month that I never thought I would just by being pushed. And now that, I'm trying to lean off the alcohol. And first thing I did after the treatment yesterday was throw away my vape, and that's been something I haven't quit since I was 16. So and I've been thinking this entire fitness journey, like if I could just quit vape, I think that's the next part. So I think it is just, fine tuning those little things, like, oh, I don't want to do vape. I don't want to waste my thoughts on that anymore. Like hopefully the next few weeks I won't even be thinking about it or,
Mhm.
One thing that's really cool is like, so like what Zan's talking about too is he's following the signs, kind of like with what I did, and like butterflies that he's talking about and seeing that synchronistically after the last time he got out of jail and stuff. The butterfly stands for transformation. So Zan, that's like the universe's way or God's way of showing Zan, hey man, you're about to go through a really big transformation. Keep following me, keep following my way, be of service, be that guiding light for other people. And one of the things that really inspired me about Zan watching his content lately too is like not only doing the actual stand-up comedy thing, which is awesome, but the fitness journey that he's embarking on. I mean, listen, man, that was one of the things that really transformed my life. Is once I really started taking that fitness aspect of things seriously, because it raises our vibrations. It turns us into an even better version of ourselves. So we start, being around newer, healthier people, promoting that healthy kind of lifestyle. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's what God wants for us, is to become the best versions of ourselves so we can promote all of these positive things to people and help them move forward in their wellness journey or in their healthy lifestyle as well.
Definitely.
I remember speaking on that point exactly. My life changed when I started running because at the time I'd always had athletics and like sports in my life and I always was training for something, but I'd never just trained for me. And until I until I learned that running was the thing for me, that's when the decisions like the alcohol, like the other like partying and just different things that I was doing at the time lost its significance because I was connected to something that I was like, when I started running, I was like, I hate this, but I'm going to do it until I don't. And then that was just the journey and the path. Because I mean, I'd assume for when you were starting your fitness journey, those first couple of sessions, you're like,
Terrible. I mean, my first couple sessions, I'm 130 pounds working out with 260-pound Bradley Martins throwing me in the gym. Have so many cameras on me, like I don't know form or anything. I'm just like I'm gonna fucking lift as these weights, like I'm gonna do it because the cameras are on. Like I'm gonna do whatever I can, Pretty sure I like popped my shoulder out of place that day, like whatever, like just like straight ego lifting, going crazy. But then that that humbled me. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna start off like just getting the form down, then learning the form, and then adding weight, and then I started like breaking personal records. And then I was like, wow, like this is going good. So just keep at it. And like everything else in life, it's not a perfect journey. I went 30 days straight to the gym, but then I ended up moving here and I like drank for a few days, saw my hometown boys, partied it up. But now I'm back at it. But it's not a perfect journey, but it's like you got to keep doing those things that are going to drag you back into it, Because like as much as like I'm like a head on person, like I would love to just, keep pounding away at it, pounding away. I get distracted so easy, like so I really need to just hone into those things that pull me back to the purpose and passion because if you're not in your own purpose and passion, then you're in a different state of mind. I think that's the problem that a lot of this world is in that other state of mind where it's just like live day to day, do all this stuff, but they're sacrificing the chance of living your dreams. Now you're just, not happy with your life or anything. And I think the whole talk about like loving yourself first, it all starts with that. Because I was living a great life, like I in Encino, great fucking house, amazing people, super famous people that I shouldn't even name drop that I lived by, like meeting everybody, but like I was depressed there, because I wasn't loving myself. And I wasn't even in a position where I could love myself because I gave the power to other people who, they didn't love me for myself. They loved me for what I did on a camera and because they thought I was funny and what they could put me in and what situations. And you got to protect yourself against a lot of that because that starts causing issues. Like you put yourself in a situation where someone else wants you and then you feel like you're cheating yourself out of something. And you can't cheat yourself out of your passion. You got to just keep burning that and the right people and sparks will come away. Like this was a scary experience for me, something I probably never thought I would try, but it came my way, and it came my way because I was walking my own path and I was still trying to get to that perfect like passion, figure out my purpose still, because I think I have a long purpose, I think that it's going to take maybe my entire lifetime to unravel it, but it's good. I think that as long as I'm pushing people in the right direction, it's all that matters to me. I don't want to mislead anybody or
One thing that Zan just brought up, and like I think that this is a really important tidbit of like inspiration and information for people is that he like went abstinent from drinking and stuff like that, and then he like he partied a little bit or he had that like lapse and like came and did whatever he did, but like then he's like, all right, but now I'm done with that again, and now I'm gonna start like going to the gym hard again, or hey, I was working out every day really hard for 30 days and then I fell off for a brief moment in time, but now I'm picking myself back up and now I'm going again. And I think that like too many people have this like all in or nothing mentality.
Was just gonna say.
Okay. And listen, like, and I've fallen victim to that too many times in my life. And I'm more of like an all in kind of mentality right now. But throughout my journey, I wasn't. I would slip or I would miss, going to the gym, or I would, have that lapse in my life where I didn't make exactly the healthiest choice for myself. But I think that one of the things that really determines or shows what kind of warrior heart and spirit that people have and like what's going to determine people's long-term success isn't being consistent 100% every day, even though that's what we all aspire to do. It's the ability to pick yourself up when we do fall and stand up and brush yourself off and keep going.
yeah.
That's the truth. I think with health and fitness, business, and everything, it's having this perspective of zooming out. So it's like I think about diet. Diet's been the hardest thing in my life to ever.
Oh yeah, same.
Like, it's so hard. And I used to get so down on myself throughout the entire process because I would go all in. Okay, I'm not eating an ounce of shit at all ever again. And that was like my mindset. Okay, done. And I would track my macros or I'd do all these unsustainable things. Boom. Whatever. have something, have ice cream, whatever, and then that would just create a perpetual cycle of, okay, I'm gonna fall off for about 2-3 weeks, and then I'm gonna get back on the horse, and then
And that's
I,
how, yeah, I feel like that's how people start like binging and different stuff like that because they almost give up. But
I think when you zoom out
mm,
and you look at the total, if I look at the last 2 years, I've incrementally gotten better. And
Yep.
it wasn't through radical change. It was through my minor switches. Okay, I'm not going to have this anymore because I know if 60% of my diet is protein, like good protein, like, ground beef and steak and things like that, I actually won't be hungry for the other shit. So it's like, okay, that's just one switch I got to make. And that is what, like, I can have 60% of my diet be protein and still have ice cream every single night if I want to. Like, legitimately, I can because I'm not even going to be that hungry for the ice cream. But it's the binging that you're talking about
yeah,
in both alcohol, like weed.
because you start feeling bad about it. And I was gonna like kind of add like the small victories really like I I I think the biggest change in my life in this last year is I really started building up on the small habits and small victories because they save you on those big moments. Because like even when my best friend like passed away, it was like first thing I wanted to do was like go get fucked up on drugs, like go crazy, burn down LA, like go in all the clubs, like so I could go to any club, get bottle service there, people know me, like do whatever. I was like thinking about like I'm seriously gonna like relapse probably harder than I ever have. And I was like, nah, I'm going to the gym. And that was a skill that I just picked up like 2 weeks ago. But that was like a small victory skill that like if I didn't take those small victories all that last week, like going to the gym and pushing myself, then in that situation I could have just fucking broke down and that would have been my reality was.
That's beautiful. And listen, man, I'm really sorry about you.
Oh yeah,
But
thank you.
like, that's what I do now. It's
Yeah.
like, listen, man, I have something bad happen to me. The Charles that used to go run out to the bar and grab an 8-ball by the end of the night or whatever, I'm like, forget this. I'm going to the gym. And I go into the gym and I crush it harder than I could possibly ever push myself, like just push myself to the limit and then sit in the sauna for 20 minutes at the end of it. By the time I leave that gym, I feel so good.
Yeah.
And it's like, so like learning how to supplement the negative or the not so healthy dopamine releases to make ourselves feel better, the way that we self-medicate with that, it's almost like we can self-medicate with positive things like doing something good for ourselves, like working out.
But that's why ketamine becomes so valuable in its practical application because it covers what is it? It's the fresh powder.
Oh
on
yeah,
this-
new neuroplasticity
Yeah.
in the brain, man.
It's resetting those, like what you said about after you were like you had the vape and you're like, fuck this, I don't even want this
Yeah.
anymore because it's a fresh powder, it's fresh snow. It's so now you can create new responses and new neuroplasticity in terms of where you get that.
Yeah,
But I was
vape's gonna be a hard one. Like that's a hard one.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, it might take me a few treatments to drop that, but I dropped it for now, and I mean, I'll gonna be honest with everybody here. I'll probably end up buying another one today, but
yeah.
it's okay. At least I saved all last night doing it, and I fought with it like all last night. I was with my friends. I'm like, no, I don't even want that shit. So at least I have that in my mind. Maybe I go back, but then it gets easier every time. Like that's
Yeah.
all it is. Like
It's the collective decision making.
Knowing that everything is a journey, man. Like, it's all about the journey. People focus on the results and the end result way too much, where it's like, it's the journey, like, and it's the healing journey. It's the kicking vaping journey. Ultimately we want to get there, but like, don't beat yourself up through the process. Just continuously try to do better on a daily basis. And like we were talking about, if we fall and if we slip or whatever you want to call it, we get up, we brush ourselves off, and we try another day, and like, and that's perfectly okay. I think that's what happened with me for so many years. Like, I would set out to embark on something where like, I'm going to quit doing this. I'm going to take it out of my life. And then I would mess up and I'd be like, I failed. And then I'd just go all out in the other direction. I'd be like, well, I'm not going to be able to do that. So now I'm going to do it 10 times harder than I was before because this is just who I am. It's like, no, like, you have your slip or whatever. And then we just try again.
I'm interested what you think about it, Charles, because we've been talking, like I've talked to you about like the use of like weed and stuff like that. Like I'm not a drinker. I don't really feel called to specifically that. But what I will use recreationally is I'll use weed. I mean, I have a medical card. It's totally legal, whatever. But it's this idea of I go through those moments of like all out. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. I'm completely done. Or I'm gonna take a month off. Or I'm gonna X, Y, and Z. But I've always recognized that's kind of missing the point, because whether complete elimination, you'll never be able to, because when you do fall back, you'll just slip right back into those old patterns because you didn't make the goal 100% of what you thought it was going to make. And it literally happens to me all the time where I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm telling myself I'm taking some time off.
So listen, I want to talk about with what you just mentioned. Like one of my best friends, Nico, is dead from that, basically. Okay, and the fact is that, you know, and much love to Nico LaGrasta. We have the Nico LaGrasta Legacy Fund as a part of my nonprofit organization. But Nico was staying sober, and he was going to AA, and then he went to California on a vacation, right? And when he went to California, because cannabis was legal out there, yeah, he bought a blunt and he smoked it. And then when he came back from California, he was like, I relapsed. I lost all of my sobriety time because I smoked a blunt, right? And so then at the AA, they were like, oh, you relapsed. You need to go get your 24-hour chip again and stuff like that. And so he's like, forget this. I'm not going back. And, you know, and now Nico died of a fentanyl overdose. And the thing is that like, I think that what people need to like, listen, like, do you want to know when my sobriety date is? I don't know. I don't know, because it's not important to me. I'm not going to live like that, man. Like, you know, like there was so many times in my life where like had a, you know, 6 months of sobriety under my belt or whatever. And then I would relapse. And then I'm like, oh, well, I ruined my sobriety. I'm going to go back out for another year before I start getting sober again. It's like my sobriety starts today, every single day when I wake up. Okay. And that's the most important thing. And like, listen, man, all I have is today. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, whatever. And the thing is, and cannabis, I'm an advocate for cannabis, man. I do med cards from our facility. I think that cannabis is an incredibly healthy alternative to all of the other pharmaceutical medications out there. And in my early recovery from alcohol, cannabis probably saved my life. Getting off of opiates and my opiate withdrawals, if I didn't have cannabis, I probably wouldn't have ate anything and I would have felt like crap the whole time. I think that cannabis is incredibly useful for a long time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that it slowed me down at the end of when I was using it, and it was making me make unhealthy eating choices that I was trying to stay away from. So I had to ask myself at the end of the day, is this really helping me, or is it kind of holding me back and hurting me? But I also think that if people use cannabis rather than drinking or opiates or pharmaceutical medications, I am all for that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I just think it's it's the slowing down aspect of it.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a time and place. I think the hating yourself for making mistakes is just like what you said about your experience. You came to the end of it and it was all about love.
Yeah.
And it started with the self-love. And so what I recognize with anything, drugs, alcohol, anything, your relationship with yourself because of the thing is actually what we're solving for. So it's like my relationship with it is when I get upset or I'm stressed, I don't like that version of myself. So I need to change a state. But then once I change state, now all of a sudden I'm judging myself for changing state. So it's like this, it really comes down to, and I've talked to a bunch of people about this, but it's like your relationship with the thing will always be more impactful than the thing itself. Whether you judge yourself for doing a thing, that's really where all of it unwinds. And now that I hear the consistency in the story of ketamine and things like mushrooms and things like that, it all comes back to this connection with self-love. And if you can love yourself, no matter how many times you fall off the wagon, no matter how many times you make a mistake, you love yourself enough to say, this does not define me. I can improve. I can do better.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I have to say, this was one of my favorite podcasts I've done. Thank you for, first of all, being so transparent and so like to break this down on a podcast the day after takes a content creator. So I give you a lot of respect for that. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I mean, we could do another one after.
Let's do it.
Something. What's this podcast called?
My self wellness, man. You know, it's basically like, this is a podcast about wellness and like what kind of healthy lifestyle practices that people are doing to take themselves to the next level of their lives, man. So it's like, it doesn't even have to specifically be psychedelics or anything. It's like, what are you doing in your life that's taking you to the next level? What healthy lifestyle practices are you implementing in your daily life to take you to be the highest version of yourself?